Today, the topic is why you feel overwhelmed with fear and anxiety and how to break free, and how I've been able to break free and stay free for a long time. I want to be very clear about why fear and anxiety feel louder than ever before for so many people. I want to talk about the difference between fear and directionless living, right? Or another way to say it is the correlation between the two. We're also going to talk about why purpose is one of the most overlooked cures for overwhelm. And I believe one of the reasons it's the most overlooked cure for overwhelm is because purpose seems abstract for a lot of people. What is that? And I want to really do some work today to clarify it. And we're going to do that in the 5-part framework for how purpose changes your life, how it changes the direction of your life, the energy you have in your life, the boundaries that you establish for yourself, how purpose creates and supports your identity, and ultimately the impact that you have in the world. I'll be sharing a few reflections that hopefully really support you real time in terms of how purpose has supported me in my life. I believe it's 2014. It's 2014. It is 2014. And I fly from Australia. I'm in Brisbane. I fly from Brisbane to Port Moresby. Port Moresby is in Papua New Guinea. So I'm in Papua New Guinea. And I have to take this flight. I remember it's in Papua New Guinea. Here's a fun one for you guys. It's a little off topic, but this is a fun one. I'm in Papua New Guinea. And for those of you who don't know, Papua New Guinea is, it's black folks, right? The indigenous people who are very close to the indigenous people of Australia. But Papua New Guinea is run by those indigenous people. And I'm in this really small airport in Port Moresby. And there's a long line, going through customs, and my flight is going to take off in a little bit of time. And I'm standing in the back of this line, and you got a bunch of these Australian fishermen, big guys, all in line. They're all arguing with the custom agents, and one of the custom agents see me, and she goes, "You come here." And so I walk up front, and they go, "Who are you? Where you from? We don't see black people in Port Moresby." I'm thinking this is Papua New Guinea is what black people are. You go, "What do you need?" I said, "Well, I'm running late for my flight." They pushed me right through, right? Talk about, privilege. Anyway, that's not the point of the story. The point of the story is I make this flight, and I have to fly from Port Moresby to Kimby. Kimby's on the northern side of the island, so I'm on the southern side of the island that's closest to Australia, right? And I have to fly all the way over the island to Kimby, right? Now, if you guys don't recall, I believe Papua New Guinea is the last frontier. And the one known place where, cannibalism and all these kind of things, still go on or have recently ended, right? Like the last place. You're probably thinking, Linal, why would you be there? Well, you got to know me a little bit to know, right? So I'm flying from Port Moresby to Kimby. And this is I'm scuba diving with a group of folks. I'm the only one on the plane that I know. So I'm on this plane with a bunch of fishermen who are used to taking this trip from Port Moresby to Kimby. So we get on the plane takes off, everything's fine. And then all of a sudden we hit this pocket of turbulence that is probably the worst. I had one back in the day coming from Miami that was probably worse. But this is let's say top 3, and I've been on a lot of planes, top 3 ever. All right, now, here I am in this seat, strapped in, and we hit the worst turbulence ever on this remote island, right, where if you go down, you just, it's over. All right, now let me pause there. And again, remember what we're talking about is how do you overcome, how do you break free from fear and anxiety? That's a very real fear. It's an external fear, but it's a very real fear. All right. Now, at this time in my life, the Creator's having this conversation with me about leaving corporate America to pursue my purpose, right? And it's 2014. I left in 2015, but I'm in the tough part of that conversation, if that makes sense, right? Like, you really want me to do this. I'm praying about it. And it's clear to me that this is the next step. Like, you need to leave corporate America. So one of the things I'm very clear about is my purpose. And I know that part of me leaving corporate America is connected to my purpose. And so I'm in this purpose conversation. It's time for you to pursue, like, to really, really get out here and pursue your purpose. And the reason that's important is because that is what was on my mind as I'm away. I'm like really kind of thinking about, man, you know, when I get back, I need to start saving money and thinking about what this next step in my life will be, because I feel this calling. So as you can imagine, let's go back to this airplane seat. All right. The plane is shaking. I mean, and I don't know to be afraid, because I'm like, what's on my mind is something that scares me a little more. And that's leaving my job to pursue my purpose and not really being clear on how everything's going to be handled. And I look across the aisle, and there's one of the fishermen. By the way, they take these flights all the time. I've been talking to some of them, and he looks petrified. And there's another foreign white gentleman who's sitting there. He's looking at me, and he's kind of like, his eyes are bucked. And I'm like, it's going to be okay. Right? I kind of look at him. I give him that look like it's going to be all right. And everybody looks petrified. I have this peace. And the reason I have this peace is I know that I have not been wrestling with a purpose conversation for what's next in my life for the plane to go down. I'm so clear, right? I am so clear that nothing can happen to this plane, because I'm being called to do some work that is well beyond this trip. And I've been praying about this thing, and the plane is shaking, and I just got peace. Everybody else around me is truly petrified. The fishermen with experience taking this trip, the other passengers who are taking it for the first time along with me, and I just feel this peace. Like, everything's going to be okay. It's going to smooth out. And again, this gentleman, this foreign guy, he keeps looking at me, and he's like, "You ever experienced something like this?" He says in an accent. I'm like, "No, but it's going to be okay." And he just kind of stares at me. He's staring, and he's holding both sides of his seat. He's just staring at me like, how is this guy okay with this? And then it calms down. Everything calms down. Everybody takes a breath. And then, of course, now people they're talking about it. They're like, "What was that? Man, that was the worst I've ever felt," et cetera, et cetera. And we go ahead and land on this dirt runway in Kimby, which is like in the middle of this remote jungle. And the rest is history. We were okay, right? Amazing trip I'll never forget. But the gentleman, the European guy, his name was Peter. He was actually on my boat. And he was a scuba diver. He was actually on my boat. And later, when he had a chance, he was like, "You got to tell me about this plane ride. Like, why did you have that kind of peace?" And that was when I had the opportunity to share the power of purpose with him. And it was the first time that I distinguished that purpose actually produces peace. Purpose produces peace. And I want you to think real quick about anyone that was headed towards something they didn't know how it was going to go. Yeshua himself in the Garden of Gethsemane, right? Even though he was troubled by what was coming, there was a peace. I think about Paul and his writings, where he knows, like, I may not see you all, right? He's writing some of those epistles, and he's like, "I pray I see you, but if I don't," think about Hebrews. No, actually, it's not Hebrews. I think it's Titus and Philemon, where he says, I'm a prisoner of Jesus Christ, because he's, I believe at the time, writing from prison. And he was like, I'm not a prisoner of them, I'm a prisoner of my faith. But there was peace. There was peace. Because he knew he was within the guardrails of his purpose. So first, let's talk about why you feel overwhelmed. Why you feel overwhelmed. And I want to be clear about something. Like today's topic, and we've talked about fear for the last 2 weeks. And so this is the third week in counting. And the idea for me is, how do I support any of you all who are listening who are battling with this to become uncommon? You might say, okay, what do you mean by saying becoming uncommon? Well, here's what I mean. I'm saying that when you begin to be able to operate outside of fear, right? And by the way, fear is something that you will still feel like. I don't want you to get mistaken that I feel no fear whatsoever and I feel no anxiety whatsoever. What it doesn't do is freeze me, right? So the ability to move forward in the face of fear, that is uncommon. And what I really want to establish and create today is a framework and support for supporting those of you, especially those of you who've been listening to me for a long time, with how to be uncommon. How to be uncommon, especially in a world where we are, in many ways, encouraged to be the same. Look the same, dress the same, drive the same. I mean, you name it. How can you be uncommon? And I don't know about you, but when it comes to fear and anxiety, I don't want to be dealing with it the same way the majority of people deal with it. Which then leads to having to drink it away, smoke it away, all those things. Like there's a remedy outside of that of course is rooted in connection with the Creator. So let me be clear there first. Like a lack of connection, and when I say connection, I mean true, genuine connection, not kidding yourself, but like true, genuine connection. And one of the things I know from experience is you can feel when you are truly connected, and you can feel when you're not. Like you can feel it. You know the difference. And so this becomes a very personal conversation. Like nobody else can determine it for you. Only you know. Only you truly, really know. And you know when you're operating outside that integrity, and you know when you're operating within that integrity. And none of us are perfect. And so there's always an opportunity to be in and out, right? But the beauty of purpose is that it's consistent and it stands. And so how do I become uncommon? Like, how do I, begin to live a life that is uncommon, but at the same time, because my life is uncommon, I don't experience the common anxieties and the common fears. And then one of the other things is some of what you call anxiety is the stress of being out of alignment. Let me say that again. Some of what we call anxiety is actually the stress of being out of alignment. Because we've been living a life that's so far outside of what we were created to do, right? We wake up every day without clarity. We wake up every day. And when I say without clarity, one of the things I always share with my clients is, like most people who have healthy anxiety, what is healthy anxiety? Not the kind of anxiety that overwhelms you, but you just can't function, which I also think is disconnection. Because that type of anxiety, you go read your good book. And we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You're constantly called to be not afraid, do not fear, right? And so if I'm functioning with that type of anxiety, there is an antidote. The Creator himself, through his son. And that's a great place to go. What I'm scared of is most folks are like, we get so stubborn, like, I'm going to figure this out. I don't want to do that. I don't mess with religion. It's like, that's not religion. This is, like, let's be clear. Yeshua was not religious, right? He was a teacher, and he's the path. Like, you can still choose the path. All right? So some of what we call anxiety is actually the stress of being out of alignment. And when I say overwhelmed, what I believe is the reason we're overwhelmed is because we are personally trying to deal with too many unknowns and too many decisions with no clear compass. Like, think about, I was with the leaders at Copeland a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things that I started the talk with, have you ever been lost in the woods? And then I asked them, I was like, what were you feeling when you were lost in the woods? And what you heard was overwhelm, anxiety, fear, anger, like all these different things, right? Because maybe they were following somebody, that person got lost and they're angry. They're like, how did you get us lost? All these different emotions come up because, like many of us, we don't have a clear compass. Because we don't have a clear compass, when all these decisions are hitting us, when we're adulting and all these decisions are hitting us, we're like, how do I make these decisions? And because we're experiencing regret from previous decisions, we feel locked in terms of, like, what direction do I go? Next week, we're going to talk about how to make decisions without regret. So you want to definitely lock in for that one. So then, because I'm in this spot where I'm navigating all these unknowns, I have all these decisions to make, I don't have a clear compass, a clear internal direction on how to make the decisions, then the fear and anxiety I feel multiply in that ambiguity. And then don't let me make a decision and it wasn't the right one. Now I'm second guessing every other thing. And for somebody, I'm likely speaking to you. And what I'm going to say is, like, please continue to listen. Don't let anything distract you from getting what you need this morning. I'm telling you. We're operating in this cloud or this fog. Just headed to the gym Wednesday morning. Was it Wednesday or Friday? Friday morning. Yeah, that was just this past Friday. Thick fog, right? You just got to take your time, move forward. The best thing is when you've been down those roads before and you know where you're going, you just take your time and you move. Not a lot of anxiety, right? Recently, was with my wife and some friends in Montana, and we were headed back to the airport in fog. We didn't know where we were going. And everybody was a little more tense, if you get where I'm going, right? Looking at the GPS like, hey, I think we turn up here. A little more tense, a little more fear, a little more anxiety. And so when I'm clear, a lot of that, even in the fog, begins to go away. Now, one of the things that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, 2 Timothy 1:7. I read that again this week. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. But I want to be very clear about something. That was written by someone who had clarity of purpose. And so if you can read that and you're like, man, how do I get there? My question to you is, have you taken on the assignment that you know you were supposed to take on? You might say, I don't even know what that assignment is. Keep listening. And I want to be clear about this. Like, the promise isn't a fear-free life. It's a sound mind. Like, notice that. It's a sound mind. That's the promise. A sound mind, no matter what's going on around you. Not just a sound mind, but power and love. and what we talked about before is that fear cannot dominate in the space of love, right? Based on the law of polarity. Okay. So here's the other thing about fear. Fear is not always bad. And fear is not always bad because fear often is showing us the edges for where we need to grow. So let me give you an example. I needed to grow in my faith back in 2014, which is why I was wrestling. Like, I was more afraid of leaving my job than a plane in turbulence, right? That's what I was thinking about. And when it was like, I did have that moment on the plane where I was like, we going to be okay? And I was like, yeah, because plane can't go down because I got more to do. It's clear I have more to do because that's what I've been wrestling with. So the plane, this situation right here, I'm not even afraid of this because I'm wrestling with a completely different edge. Right? I'm wrestling with leaving corporate America, and like I don't see, like, that doesn't make sense for me to go out right now when I'm very clear about there are big decisions the Creator is telling me I need to make for my future, which means I have a future. I felt that peace. So fear is predictable, and it shows up anytime we attempt something new or we have new decisions we have to make. And the problem isn't fear showing up itself. The problem is when we allow fear to take the wheel or to hit the brakes and completely freeze us. And so one of the things I love about purpose, and one of the reasons we're going to talk a lot about purpose today, is when purpose is clear, the next direction and the next decision is clear. You may not necessarily want to do it, right? But the direction and the decision is clear. And that's the beauty of it. So instead of wrestling with anxiety, you're wrestling with faith. Y'all get where I'm going? But when purpose is unclear, decisions typically get made by default. Well, will this be comfortable? Or it gets made by your current mood. And this is why many of us have so many regrets. Because, well, I made that decision because it felt most comfortable, but it wasn't what's best for your life, right? I made this decision because I was in a mood, but it wasn't best for your life. I made the decision because I'm a little insecure and I couldn't see myself doing that, right? Or I don't believe in myself that way. Well, purpose is the antidote for a lack of self-belief, and making decisions from insecurity are basically what you're doing is you're binding yourself. Or another one is, well, I made this decision because that's what everybody else wanted to do. And I think we already know that the broad path is not a good path. And again, this is why I'm saying beat fear, be uncommon. Part of the way you step outside of anxiety, you step outside of fear, is you have to do the uncommon thing. Everybody ain't doing it. Or I made this decision because I got to survive. And purpose is not about survival. Purpose is about thriving. And when you're living aligned with purpose, your thought is, what's the next move that's in alignment with who I'm created to be and where I'm supposed to go, not survival. Because I know as long as I stay on the path, this path's got fruit, it's got everything we're going to need. Because I need fuel for the purpose. And as long as I'm on this path, then I may not know where the next fruit tree is going to be, but I trust that when I need it, it'll be there. It'll be there. Again, purpose is a faith walk. When purpose is clear, decisions get simpler. I didn't say that they're easy to make, but you know what direction to go. Like, I'm supposed to go left. I don't want to go left, but I'm supposed to go left. Like, I'm supposed to go left. I got to go left. Now, might take some prayer, might take all that, but I'm supposed to go left. You're very clear, okay? And because of that, confusion drops. So what I find living a life of purpose is I'm more my mind is more on, all right now, you telling me to go left. I need the strength to go left. Like, I'm in that conversation versus, where do I go? What's next? I'm more like, I need your help with going left. Clarity. And there's a lot less anxiety because the decisions are narrow. I don't have all these options. I know this is where I'm supposed to go. I'm not very clear about how, right? To my Slay Goals members, but I see the vision. So let me take the action in front of me. And trust and have faith and leap in that direction. A question for you is this. If right now the fear and anxiety that you're experiencing is loud, I want you to ask yourself, what decision are you avoiding right now? Like, what are you avoiding right now? And typically it's the call, right? It's the call on your life. Like most of us, we want to maintain some level of control, like personal control. But the last time I checked, I'm not the best navigator of my life. I'm not. I don't know if I want to have full control. I gave that up a while ago. Like full control, like, nah, I don't make good decisions. I think about the decisions I was making in my early 20s that led to all types of disasters, right? I think about some of the decisions I made in my 30s that led to all types of disasters, all types of other anxieties, right? Based on the decisions I made. So it's kind of like, nah, I think what I'm going to do is actually allow the decision-making process to be narrowed down to my purpose and the Creator's will for my life. That's now, I'm not saying I want to do everything that I'm told to do, but I'd rather be in that conversation around give me the strength than to be unclear. So if fear and anxiety are loud, ask yourself, what real decision are you avoiding right now? I could probably tell you which one it is. And then ask, what would I choose if I were living in alignment with my purpose? You might say, well, now I don't know my purpose. Well, March 14th, I'll be teaching a Discover and Live Your Life's Purpose workshop. And the idea, the promise is that you distinguish your purpose or I refund whatever it was that you invested in it. It's that simple. Purpose equals energy plus boundaries. Now, what do I mean by this? When I'm clear on purpose, then I'm also clear on where I should be putting my energy, right? And when I'm clear on purpose, what happens is there's certain things that because they don't align with my purpose, I'm not doing. And because I'm not doing those things, those are my boundaries that support my energy with being focused in the right areas, right? So even if you know your purpose, because a lot of times people come, they go through the workshop, they're like, I already know my purpose. I don't know how to live it. It's like, yeah, because you've been ignoring boundaries. You've been ignoring clear direction. Because that direction, like I said, okay, it's time to go left. It's like, well, I don't know how to go left, but it's time to go left. I'm clear, right? Like that is what my purpose is telling me. Then that means there's a boundary in place. Don't go right. Right? Like, I know I'm supposed. So then what I'm doing going that way? All my energy should be placed in going left, even if I don't know how. That's where my energy is. Well, then help me how. Like, that's where all my mental energy is. And I believe that when people experience burnout and just like this intense anxiety around workload, most of the time is because you're outside your purpose, you're misaligned, and there are no boundaries. So you're all over the place. Let me give you an example. I can remember being back in corporate America, and I was asked to take on certain projects or do things. And this is like, this is later, right before I was leaving. And one of these projects was in direct competition with a commitment I had made, to my wife and a commitment I made to the creator. And I remember they were like, yeah, you need to have this project done by the end of the second quarter. And I was like, we need to push right boundaries. Because it wasn't just me, right? I'm like, well, if you have me deliver on this by the end of the second quarter, that means I have to disrupt my commitments with the creator. I have to disrupt my commitments to my wife, who was my fiance at the time. I'm like, that's out of integrity for me. And like, those commitments supersede what a boss says. All right. And so I was like, hey, and this is like January, February. I'm like, I don't see that I can deliver on, by the way, this is the beauty of vision and purpose, because you know the plan, right? And so it's like, I don't know that I can deliver on that by the end of the second quarter. Can we push that a bit to the end of July, early August? And they were like, no. So then I was very clear. This is my CEO and a peer. And I was very clear that I'm not really asking. I'm telling you, this is when I'm going to be able to deliver it. And I remember my CEO, he turned beet red. He's like, I can't like this guy. But it's like, excuse me, sir, but you're not the big boss. You get around, I ain't say that to him, but that's what I was thinking when he was looking at me like, who do you think you are? I'm like, you're not the big boss, man. Like, the big boss is like, you got other work to do. I need to deliver on that work. And what I'm talking about here is, like, a lot of times we're burnt out because we're trying to deliver for the big boss, big boss, and for the human boss, and for everybody else around us. It's like, nah, there's levels to this. The big boss, the creator, gets priority number one. So you need to push your project back. Now, at this point, I was clear I was leaving. Right? So don't go to work Monday talking about, hey, my big boss. It's like, no, you better be clear. Clear that you have clearance. Our pilots, when they take off, like, hey, we're ready to take off. They get permission first. Make sure you get permission. Don't say, well, Linal said I'm going to run. Get permission from the big boss. I want you to ask this question. When it comes to the decisions that you're making, day in and day out, whether you think they're right or wrong, whether you feel like you have regret or you would have regret or not, how would you choose? How would you choose if you were clear on why you exist? Hey, if you're enjoying what you're watching right now, do me a quick favor. I want you to hit the like button and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to tap the notification bell so you never miss when we drop new content. Seriously, it means the world that you're here. Thanks for watching, and let's get back to it. I was a Fortune 500 officer. And when you reach that level, you have to disclose everything you're doing, right? There's really no more privacy. And one of the reasons I had to make the leap was because I knew that the creator had given me a voice. And when I distinguished my purpose in my mid-20s, 22, 23, and really started kind of operating within that purpose in my mid-20s, there were still things in my life that were out of alignment, but I could see where I was supposed to go. And one of the things I knew I was supposed to do was develop my voice. And how I knew that there was a clash happening between my life's purpose and my professional career, right, in corporate America, was when they began to tell me that I could only use my voice to further the mission of the company and nothing else, right? And by the way, I was in tough conversations. I was already on WVON. As you guys know, I celebrated 13 years last week. And I was already on the radio. And I remember I did a segment with Mac McGill. And it was about taking career to the next level. But in particular, Matt and I, this is when he was on the mornings, Matt and I were talking about how felons could get back in, how they could get jobs and begin to create their own careers and some of the vocations that would really support them in going to the next level. And that was like on a Monday morning. I did this. It used to be called Career Corner. Some of you guys might remember that. And I believe this is like 2013, 2014 when we did that segment, Career Corner. And I got called in to my CEO's office, and he was like, "Man, what's this? Talking about felons, and you're an officer of this company, and supporting felons doesn't support what we're up to, and you need to shut it down." Right? And I was like, "Hold on now. Like, felons are people, and they're people who made bad mistakes, and they've been labeled felon as a result of what they've done, not who they are." Right? I'm like, so the idea of this organization supporting people that made mistakes, especially when they're our customers, I'm like, you tell me what's wrong with that. And then he just said, "You know what? You need to wrap up this radio thing." And he didn't put a time frame on it, but I knew that it was only a matter of time. Well, he couldn't. Let's say put like when you're living in purpose, he couldn't put a time frame on it because he could have said it stops today or you get fired, because as an officer is at will, right? But he couldn't because the creator was like, "Nah, we're working on another plan." And that's one of the things I really want you to remember is that when you're in alignment with purpose, when you're in alignment with your purpose, like there's like sometimes we worry about what this person going to do or what that person's going to do or how it's going to go. But it's like, again, the fruit I need will be on the path. And it's trusting that the fruit I need will be on the path. And so he couldn't say that at the time. But then it became clear to me that there was going to be a point of conflict, that if I didn't free myself, they would try to tether my voice. And I knew my voice, right, was fully related with my purpose. And so if someone's trying to tether my voice, it's not the place for me to be. Even when it comes down to clients, like, okay, this is not the place for me to be. I've had clients who've, listened, or even perspective. Remember one time I had a company out of New York. We were like right there in talks. We were supposed to close the deal. And they were like, "Yeah, your message doesn't align and we don't want any problems, so we're not going to bring you on." Okay. Okay. That's, you know what? It is what it is, because my voice and my purpose will remain the same. And it's getting to that point in your journey where when you realize that your purpose is your peace, nobody's going to take my peace. Nobody's going to take my peace. I'm not going to change my message. Okay. Hopefully that helps a little bit. One of the things that happens with fear, and let's look at, this situation, and I believe that my life is nothing more than an example for other people. But I could have allowed fear to tether me to that job, which means that fear would have kept me loyal to a life and to a path I didn't even like. Fear would have placed me into a situation where I would have had overwhelm, overload, stress, and anxiety, right? Because if I was like, well, I can't leave because I don't know, I just got married, I don't know how I'm going to make ends meet, I got a brand new wife, what would she think? I got to do all the, I could have lost her to the handcuffs of corporate America. It's like, no. And I'm grateful for a wife that understood, purpose. I was very clear about, hey, my purpose dictates things now. And so that can make it where, sometimes things can shift. And I was very clear before we got married, hey, and I got to leave corporate America to pursue my purpose. So I hope you know that. She trusted that. And we've been blessed as a result. Fear and anxiety will keep you loyal to a life you don't even like. I really want you to wrap your mind around that. You don't even like your life. You don't like being bound by the things you're bound by. You don't like the job. You don't like your social group, but you're afraid that if I don't hang out with them, I'll be alone. I don't want to be by myself. Like, you don't even like drinking no more, but because the fear and anxiety you feel, you feel like I gotta quell all that noise. So it's like, I really don't enjoy it. You're bound by it. You don't even like life that way. You don't like how you feel when you're that way. You don't like the results of being that way. And really what it comes down to is gaining clarity on your identity. One of the things I talk about in the course, Discovering and Live Your Life's Purpose Workshop. Again, March 14th, Saturday, March 14th. I'll be teaching this course virtual, so no matter where you are in the country, you can join. I've reduced it big time to make sure that anybody, regardless of financial situation, can join. And one of the things that you'll learn is that what has happened is that we've somehow, and I don't know even, but somehow our identity has been misrepresented. Most of us, we relate to ourselves first and foremost as this physical body, as the human force that we see, right? The human physical force that we see, the tangible force that we feel. So we begin to relate to ourselves that way. And then that becomes our identity. How I look, the color of my skin, the sound of my voice. Like we begin to relate to ourselves as this is my identity. This is who I be. And it's a misconception that then places us in a field where then I have to rely on those things, because if that's who I be, then that's all I have. I think it's one of the reasons why many people are afraid of aging. Because if all I can do is relate to the physical entity of who I am, then as I begin to watch that shift and change, I get anxiety. Because that's who I relate to be. That's how I relate to myself. That's my identity. My identity is shifting in my very face. I look at the mirror and I see my identity changing. My son, the other day, he said to me, he saw a picture of me maybe about 10, 15 years ago. He was like, "Dad, man, you look so young." And I'm like, "Thanks, buddy." Right? He don't even realize what he said. Now, here's the thing. That could hit me a particular type of way if that was the major portion of my identity, right? If that's how I identify with myself, then it would make me feel a certain kind of way. But from a place of purpose, how I identify with myself is that I'm on a spiritual journey, and that my spirit, the spirit the Creator gave to me, the spirit that is crafted in His image, is the primary part of my identity. And it is the driver of my physical being. If the spirit leaves, the physical is over. Right? It's done. So why have anxiety, fear about what's happening to the physical when if the spirit leaves, it could end immediately? Instead, I'm concerned with the spirit and the spiritual, and purpose is spiritual. Purpose is spiritual. And so I believe that one of the reasons many of us are struggling with life is because our identity has been misconstrued. Our identity is based on the physical entity versus the spiritual entity. And if my focus is on a spiritual entity that, by the way, based on the law of entropy, is breaking down and decaying, then It's going to bring up all types of gaps and fears and anxieties for me. And I do believe that there is a wisdom that the Creator can give us on how to take care of the temple. But I won't have the strength to do that if I don't dig into the spiritual, the spirit, because the spirit is the power force, is the source of everything. You know how they say the window is the eyes to the soul. You can tell who a person is by looking in their eyes. Well, why would that matter if the physical was the identity? Why would I need to look into your eyes to know your real identity if the physical was it? Well, I could just look at you and say, I know who this guy is. But I got to look into your eyes to see into your spirit to know who you are, because the spirit is who you really be. The problem is most of us aren't in tune with that. And because we're not in tune with that, that's why fear and anxiety can take hold on us. Purpose really starts with identity. Because if you don't know who you are, you'll chase what looks safe or successful. And by the way, in this world, in the 21st century, 2026, what is being broadcast to us, they're telling you it's safe. If you do this, you'll look successful. And then what we end up finding most of the time is that it isn't safe and it isn't securing our success. I got more bills now. I got more debt now, right? Oh, and the thing that I thought was safe, turns out there's a special report that says it's not safe anymore. It's one of the reasons why I believe that we live in a time where you got to be connected. You got to be connected. I don't trust nobody but the spirit, man. I don't trust nobody but the spirit. Pandemic came. You had leaders telling you what to do, what not to do. And it's like, nah, I don't trust nobody but the spirit. I'm taking my instruction from the spirit. Like that's my identity. That's my reason for being. And so let me check in with the big boss. I don't care what they say. I don't care what they mandate. What should I be doing? Get the instructions. Okay, that's what we gonna do. When everybody else is doing this, guess what? I'm gonna beat fear and be uncommon. I got my instructions. And as for me and my house, I told my house, hey, look, this is how we moving. And this is what we're doing. Anybody that reached out and say, hey, Linal, what you doing? I said, you sure you want to know? But see, here's the thing. When I'm not clear, then I have identity confusion. I believe this is where insecurity comes from. Like one of the reasons many of us are dealing with insecurity is because like I'm grappling with my physical identity versus my spiritual identity, and I'm confused, and that fuels anxiety. Anxiety comes from a lack of clarity. And that lack of clarity, especially if the focus is on the physical, is going to leave you performing all the time. Got to perform. I got to look a certain way. I got to be a certain way. It's funny. I was talking to my barber about this last night, and we were talking about how many people who are like in the spotlight in a public way, one of the things that pulls them down financially is having to maintain a certain presence and a certain look. He was like, Linal, how did you contend with that? And I was like, I started to notice it. Especially when we would stream the show, and I'd be like, well, what am I going to wear to look a certain way? And I was like, man, no. And that's what I love about the Creator. He was like, keep it simple. That's why you see a black T-shirt every Sunday. Because if I got to wear a brand or wear this for you to say, oh, this guy is credible, then that's about physical identity. What should create credibility is spiritual identity. Be careful who you follow based on what they look like, based on what they wear, based on what they drive, be careful. One of my favorites is the idea that in order for you to be born, it almost takes an anomaly, right? Like the chances that you're listening and that you are an entity in this physical realm. Like when you think about what has to happen at conception, the millions of sperm, right? One had to win. That one was part of what made you. The many eggs that our mothers dropped and nothing happened, right? Became part of her cycle. But the egg and the sperm that connected to make you is like 1,000,000,001. 1,000,000,001. And then in that cycle, you're created and born, which is miraculous, right? Remember my wife when she got pregnant with Legend. It was like being in that each stage of the process was just like, man, it's mind blowing. The heart beating. And then now to see him 8 years old. Last night, I carried my daughter up the steps. She was asleep. And I remember when it used to be just one arm, right? And last night it's two arms and her feet are dangling, hitting my thighs. And I'm like, wow, look how she's grown. Wow. Like a little person, a miracle. Like all of us are these miracles. Do you see yourself that way? Do you realize that the idea that you are here is not an accident? It is intentional. The Creator is intentional. And regardless of what you've done, regardless of what you've been through those things for a very clear purpose. And at any point, you can turn your life and say, now, how do I use the downs to support other people with going up? And as you support other people with going up, guess what happens to you? You go up too. Purpose isn't something you make up. Purpose is something that you already had tethered to your spirit when you were created. Last night I was praying with my children, and one of the things I pray is we appreciate purpose. We thank you for the purpose that you've given our lives. I thank you for allowing us to walk in that purpose. And then as I put them to sleep, I always wonder, like, what's their mission? Why were they given to me? Why am I a steward? What's the mission that they're supposed to be on? And am I doing everything I'm supposed to do to ensure those talents blossom, those strengths develop, so they can go and align with their North Star? Purpose isn't something you make up. You already got it. And I believe that anxiety and fear is the signal, right? One of the things we talked about is fear being a signal, anxiety being a signal that you're out of alignment. You want to get rid of fear and anxiety? Get back in alignment. Discover your purpose. Live your purpose. Some of you may listen because you're like, all right, man, you said how to break free. So why you feel overwhelmed with fear and anxiety and how to break free? I'm hearing this purpose thing, Linal, but how do I break free? How do I break free? I promised this 5-part purpose framework. I call this the purpose advantage. All right. The first part is that purpose equals direction. So when it comes to decision making around direction, and next week we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you a decision making framework, and I'm going to really talk about how to make decisions without regret. But when you make decisions in alignment with purpose, there is no regret. One of the things that scares me the most is, what if I didn't leave corporate America? What if I allowed fear to arrest me and I was like, man, how am I going to make money? And I didn't leave. Where would I be today? Where would I be today if they were like, hey, no more radio? And I was like, I got to stop, y'all. Could you imagine if I allowed fear to arrest me that way? Could you imagine? So purpose equals direction. Hey, I know I'm supposed to go this direction. I don't know where the fruit's going to come, but I do believe that if I'm on my purpose path, then when I need to eat, the fruit will be there. I'll be taken care of. Yahshua said, like, the Heavenly Father takes care of the sparrow. How much more does he love and want to take care of you? And when I'm in alignment, then a lot of times I was sharing with my Slayer Goals members Thursday night. I'd be like, all right, it's on you now. Like, I did what I was supposed to do. I'm operating with integrity. Now it's your turn. I can't tell you how many times I've been in conversation with the Creator. Like it's your turn now. Like, I did what I was supposed to do. Now it's your turn. And get, you know what that does? It gives me peace. I don't got to stay up all night trying to figure out what's going to happen. No. It's your turn. I'm going to go to sleep. I'll let you handle this. You change your hearts. You do your thing. One of the things about purpose, and I'll say this, and I'll go to the next step of this 5-part framework. Number one, purpose equals direction. It's the beautiful thing about purpose is that, one, it does give you peace, but it also, like, you can relax in it and just kind of like, look, man, like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so now I just got to sit back and wait for the Creator to do what he's supposed to do. It does take faith, though. It does take a different type of belief. The composition of belief is the cognitive acceptance of a thought. You got to be able to accept that thing in your mind. And you got to be able to feel. You got to be able to feel it, too, emotionally, like I'm taken care of. Number two, purpose equals energy. The reason, and we talked about this, the reason that purpose equals energy is because we know as human beings, our energy is finite. And when I'm clear on my direction, purpose equals direction. That means my energy is placed in that direction. So the finite energy I have is placed towards the thing that I know I'm supposed to do. That energy is funneled through number three because purpose equals boundaries. One of the things you all heard me say, and I recently heard a young lady, I can't remember, I think it's the relationship conversation where she was like, no, your first priority is to your woman. And I was like, I actually need to respond. Did I send that to you guys? I said I need to stitch this in social media. Anyway, I need to respond to it. But one of the things she was saying is that a man's purpose, or like not his purpose, but his first call is to his wife. And I was kind of like, where did she get this from? Well, and I'm going to tell any woman, like, you do not want that man's first call to be to you. Like, you are in trouble because you're a human being and you make mistakes. And if you make a mistake and his first call is to you and now he has no other boundaries, you're in trouble. His first call has to be to God. Number one. His first call has to be to God. Purpose equals boundaries. And I always say my wife is number three. God first, purpose second. She's number three. And I love her. I love her deeply. But, like, how can I allow my wife to step in front of my identity, my spiritual identity, which is my purpose, who I be? So purpose equals boundaries. There's boundaries on things. And that supports my energy being focused and my direction, because when there are boundaries, like the direction I can go has limits. So there's certain things I don't even got to think about. I don't have to wrestle with it. Number four, I said it, purpose is my identity. And especially in today's world, one of the things that we'll all have to contend with is this attention economy. We talked about it before. I'm at a point, like in my walk, where it's like, look, man, the Creator, he's going to do his thing, and I got to do the best I can to do my thing. But I'm not about to become a big comedian to get more views, right? No. I'm not about to, start putting crazy stuff on social media that's outside the boundary or the direction of my mission and purpose to get more eyeballs. It's like when people are ready, they know where to go. They know where to come. And because my identity is founded in a creator, the number of followers, the number of views, those things don't matter. It's, am I doing my work? Am I doing my work? Am I in alignment with the creator's will for my life? That's it. And when you have that, then there's no insecurity. You see somebody doing something different, and you're like, oh man, that's awesome. I'm happy. I'm happy that's happening for them. Because as long as they're in their lane and they're in their purpose, then that's what it's supposed to be. There's no need for insecurity. I remember years ago, I was actually speaking at UIC, and speaking at UIC to the students up there, and right before I went on, this brother got up, and he was a poet, and he did this piece. It was amazing. It was an amazing piece, and I'm like, I got to go up after him, and and I'm a human being, man. Like that sense of insecurity started to seep in, like, and then what happened? Like, something came to my mind, was like, well, you got a little poetry. Maybe you should do some poetry. Y'all ever see something like this happen? Where a person steps outside their identity because of what another person did, and you sit there and cringe for them? You like, oof. Because it's like, that's not who you are. What are you doing? Well, anyway, something whispered in my head. You should do a piece of poetry. Okay, by the way, he did his thing, man. They were on standing ovation. The whole stadium went crazy. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I'm supposed to go after this guy. And then a still small voice came and was like, you have a different mission. You have a different mission. I didn't call you to be a poet. I didn't call you to rhyme. I called you to call people to purpose. Do what you're supposed to do. And it was like, oh, let me dispel poetry from my mind. Let me get back on the mission. And all of a sudden I remembered, oh yeah, that is my mission. And that sense of insecurity, gone, right? Let me do what I was created to do. Let me align with my identity. Let me align with my identity. My purpose is my identity. And so instead of going up and trying to be somebody else, I went up. I was Linal Harris. Number 5, purpose equals impact. I'll use the same story. Part of what I talk to those young people about is the conversation I'm having with you right now. That you've achieved something at this university. You've learned something. But if you want it all truly to come together, now you have to ask yourself, is the quest that you're on, does it align with your purpose? Does it align with who you are meant to be on this planet? And when I finish, by the way, it wasn't a lot of snapping and clapping while I was talking. But when I finished, the impact was made. The impact was made. Purpose equals impact. What is the impact that your life is supposed to be having right now? Are you maximizing that impact? Are you maximizing that impact? Are you on mission? Or are you off the mission? Have you gone rogue? I can guarantee you if you've gone rogue, you feel a heavy sense of anxiety, a heavy sense of fear. If you don't know who you are, you will chase what looks safe. You will chase what looks successful. And the consequence is anxiety. The consequence is constantly performing. When you're in alignment with your when you're in alignment with your purpose, fear gets demoted. Like any fear I feel is secondary to being in alignment with my purpose. I know what I'm supposed to do, regardless of what I'm feeling. Nietzsche says, when you know why, you can experience almost anyhow. When you know why, you can experience almost anyhow. Purpose changes what you're willing to face. Purpose changes how you face it. Most of us, we know David, right? King David. And, often I'll talk to my son about King David because King David faced like real physical fear. Real physical fear. I think one of the beautiful things about the Psalms, most of us, like, we're not dealing with external fears, right? I mean, real physical fear. Because he wasn't a real big guy. He became a fierce warrior. But he didn't have this, like real big continents and all that. And I believe that's what kept him in prayer. That's what kept him humble, right? Like, Saul was a big dude. Saul started feeling himself because he was a big dude. Scriptures say Saul stood like a head above all the other men. Saul stepped on him, he's like, I was supposed to win that battle. So the Creator said, I tell you what, let me go get a small shepherd. And what we got from this small shepherd are some of the most beautiful Psalms. And, his conversations with God, I think about Psalms 56:3. When I am afraid, I will trust in thee. Like he had to constantly like reinforce himself. Because I think he saw his frailty like, hey, man, one bad move, I could be out of there. I can't just elbow my man and he out for the rest of the battle, right? I gotta, I'm gonna need your help. I'm gonna need your help with this. I didn't hit dudes and they're still standing. So he says, when I'm afraid, I will trust in thee. In you, I will put my trust. I will not fear what flesh can do to me. I don't know, like many of you listening, I don't know what you're up against. What I do know is that when you get settled down in your spirit and you start really believing these truths, because that's what they are. And most of us know that when we've settled something and we followed it, it worked. So why would you do anything different? Purpose, clarity of purpose equals peace. You've been trying to do it your way. What if you actually said, you know what? I know you got a purpose for my life. I am going to surrender. I will bend the knee to my reason for being. Doesn't that make sense? Especially if the anxiety's high, the fear is high. And when you actually trust the Creator, that's when he gives you the direction. I said this before, but it's clear to me that when I look back at my life, and anybody that knows me, if you're like, how did Linal accomplish what he's accomplished? How does he live the way he lived, drive the way he drive, have the financial standing that he has? It's not because of me. It's not, I'm telling you, it's not because of me. I can go back and look at my life and see where I was called to do something that I was afraid to do. I was given a direction that I didn't really want to hear. I'm like, what? Let me turn the radio up a little bit. Maybe I can drown that out. Right? I'm serious. And then, you lay down and you hear the same voice like, hey, this is what I need you to do. What, man? That's not what? That's, whew. But when I've listened to that voice on the other side, the blessings and the peace, like my life is just a combination of God directing me and then blessing. So I can't say, well, look what I did. I told you all about one of my properties, the pipe bursting. And so the next day I had a restoration company come in. There's a young brother and he's moving things around. I'm moving things around. And he saw the book, Nature's Leadership Code, sitting there. He goes, this is your book, man? I said, yes, I wrote that. And he was like, hey, bro, you different. He was like, I can sense it. He was like, and my boss, he don't really say nothing about people. And then he told me, he was like, hey, man, this guy you going to do this work for, he a little different. He got a different feel to him, so make sure you take good care of him. I said, really? Wow. He said, yeah, man, I ain't never heard my boss say that about a black man. I said, oh, okay. I said, well, I'm honored, man. I'm grateful. And he was like, if there was one thing that you would say that made your life different, what would you say it is? And I was like, the Creator, brother. He kind of looked at me. He goes, you religious? I said, well, if you call listening to the Creator's voice religious, then yeah. But whatever you call that, that's what I am. And he was like, oh, you put that different. That's different. So we get into this conversation and I just started sharing with him my story. Like, hey, I was doing X and the Creator told me to do Y. And I made a detour and did Y. And the reason why you're experiencing me the way I am today is because every time I was told to make a detour, I made a detour. So the success that you see, it's not me. It's the Creator. Because I was given direction. Otherwise, I'll be off doing something different. So I can't take responsibility for this. I can't say anything that you see, anything that you admire is me. It's all the Creator. That's the beauty of purpose. And I don't believe it's in the material things. I believe it's in the way of being. What his boss saw was a way of being. What he saw was clear identity in a storm. I believe what he saw was peace. Like this guy, he ain't frazzled by all this stuff happening. And I don't say that to lift myself up. I'm saying it so that you understand the power of purpose. Solomon said, trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. That part right there, man, is like I got a real lesson on that early this year. Sometimes, the Creator endows us with understanding and wisdom and knowledge, and I have been moving. I hadn't been checking in the way I should. And trust in the Lord with all thine heart. It means everything, not a little bit, everything. And lean not to thine own understanding. Even when that understanding is good, I understand that 2 + 2 = 4. What does that mean? I understand that I worked really hard. I worked really hard to get to a certain level in corporate America, to get to a certain spot. That's my understanding. He's like, yeah, but I got another path for you. Lean not into thy own understanding, and in all thy ways acknowledge him. All right, what do you want me to do? And then he will direct your path. Well, I want you to leave. Huh? I want you to leave. I want you to pray with this young man. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. Right? Sometimes I'd be like, by the way, this brother, he wasn't a soft-looking kind of dude. None of that. We having this conversation. I feel the Creator say, hey, pray with him. With him? Like this guy? Pray with this guy. I say, hey, man, look, before I left, I said, you mind if I pray with you? He was like, oh, man, no, I don't have a problem with that. And this is this brother don't, like this, this brother, he a man's man, a tough guy, grew up on the West Side. We connected in them ways. And I grabbed his hand and I pulled him in and we stood there a few minutes, two men, embracing each other, holding hands. And I prayed with him. When I finished, he was crying. And he wasn't a crying kind of man. After that, I said, is this why you burst the pipes? We don't know. Like, our lives are not our own. Are you willing to listen on that level? Are you willing to take guidance on that level? David said that when he's talking to the Creator reminds him, I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go, and I will guide thee with mine eye. When I look at what's happening in the world today, I don't want to use my eyes. And that's the beauty of purpose. If I'm aligned with my purpose, then it really comes down to the Creator's eye. Do you know your purpose? Once again, March 14th, I'll be teaching the Discover and Live Your Life's Purpose course. The one guarantee I make, I believe this is a gift the Creator gave me. He gave me this curriculum, is to support you with distinguishing your purpose. Another way to think about it is to support you with distinguishing your identity. You can go to linalharris.com and you'll see the purpose course there. Check it out. Look up the information. 11 to 5, 6-hour workshop, March 14th. Would love to have you there. Let me say this. If I stirred something in you today, don't ignore it. I'm at a point where I'm listening to like what say this, say that. Put this scripture in, you know it. Like, say it. I'm listening, and I know it's stirring something. Don't ignore it. Fear doesn't have to leave. It just can't drive. It just can't drive. Joshua 1:9, have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid. Be not afraid. Neither be thou dismayed. That's anxiety. That's anxiety. If you want a structured process to help purpose, I'm going to have Ade put the QR code back on the screen. You can go to linalharris.com and check out the Discover and Live Your Life's Purpose course, March 14th. And I would love to spend that time with you. The promise is simple. I will support you with distinguishing your life's purpose during this workshop. And if you don't distinguish it, I'll give you your money back. That's the promise. No pressure, just clarity. You weren't born just to survive. You were born to live on purpose. And when we live on purpose, we thrive. Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WVON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Linal Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.